here comes another goofy analogy, because it feels to me like Watiko, it produces in the physical world what our filter tells it to. Our wounds, our cracks, our training, all of the stuff that we've been taught that isn't really us, all of the cracks in our isness, it sort of gets squished through like a Play-Doh fun factory. If you put like the little star shape on there and you push the Play-Doh through, it comes out in the form of a star. So if you've got the kind of wounds that would create like, for example, heart issues, if you've got a broken heart, a closed heart, and Watiko is pushing through your filter, you may end up with physical heart disease.
Right. I just love that image of like the Play-Doh when you're squeezing it through. That's awesome. I really I hadn't thought about it in that way. But what you're saying is so right on, because you see the thing about Watiko, it exists in a higher dimension than just the physical. It exists in that place where the material and the spiritual or the psychological or mind actually coexist together. And so because of that, yeah, we have a physical body, and on one level, that needs to be honored, and that's as real can be from that particular dimension. But from a higher dimension, being that this is a collective dream, and I can talk a lot about that because that's one of the ways of seeing Watiko, is that the mind and body aren't separate. The mind and body are one sort of higher dimensional organism. So if we have a disassociation or disturbance in our mind, of course our body is going to reflect that back. Now, you see, here's the thing about Watiko, it has no creativity on its own whatsoever, but it's a master impersonator, right? And so what it does, like I have been describing, it actually apes us and impersonates us so in such a way that when we identify with its fictitious version of ourselves, it can plug into our creativity and turn it against us. Now, I want to just point out that's really interesting, at least to me, because being a student of the psyche, one of the things, and just being, so familiar with my own process, one of the things that I know for sure is that the greatest poison in the human psyche is unexpressed creativity. When we don't actually consciously, constructively tap in to our creativity, that creativity gets turned against us in a way that makes us ill. And yeah, so, what you're saying, I just really appreciate it.
What you just said makes so much sense. I wonder, I know that you were really into quantum physics, and I know
Yeah,
that you say that quantum physics actually provides the medicine for this. And
yeah,
you
yeah,
talk about participatory medicine.
yeah, yeah,
What
yeah,
is that?
yeah. So, okay, so see, my recent book is on quantum physics, and I talk a lot about Watiko because, why would I not? It's the most important thing in the world to talk about. And I point out that quantum physics is the medicine, is offering us the medicine for Watiko. Because, okay, just take a step back. Here, Watiko, we've entranced ourselves by our creative power of our own mind. We actually, like, we're having a collective dream. That's what all the wisdom traditions say. And by the power of our mind, if we hold a viewpoint, for example, that this dream is solid and real and objective and separate from us, well, then what is a dream? It just reflects the mind that is observing it. As soon as we hold that viewpoint, that universe will then reflect back to us, confirming our viewpoint, giving us all the evidence we need, confirming that our actual experience is true, i.e., that the world is objective and separate from us, and that we're a subject that's separate from the world and that's in relationship to it as the object. So then we actually get more entrenched in that viewpoint. And the more entrenched we get in that viewpoint, the more the world reflects back, giving us evidence that the world is objective. That's the spell. We then hypnotize ourselves into thinking the world is other than ourselves, is objective, and we then are this subject who's subject to the world. And we have no power. We're just a victim of that whole thing. And no one else has done that. We've done that. Here comes quantum physics. And it has proven that the pre-quantum, that the world, that the classical physicists before quantum physics came on the scene were studying. They thought of it as being objective and real and solid, just like I've been describing. And they were just passive observers trying to understand how it worked. One of the ways of really understanding, well, why is quantum physics being called the greatest discovery ever in all of history in the realm of science, is because it's shown that that world, that objective world, doesn't exist. It only exists as an idea in our mind. It has no correlate in actual reality. And not only that, but that the act of observing the world actually influences the world observed. And that's just like a dream. In a dream, there's no objective dreamscape. The dream you're in is actually a reflection of the mind that is observing the dream, instantaneously changing each and every moment depending on how you observe it. That's what quantum physics has discovered, the dreamlike nature of reality. It's actually empirically proven again and again. We're having a collectively shared dream. What that means is that the act of observing is creative. So in other words, once you realize that, you realize, oh my God, I have this immense creative power. I've always had it 24/7. We all do. But to the extent I don't know it, it's being turned against myself, particularly being in a culture where so few people are switched on to their genius of creativity, that we then reinforce onto each other that we're these limited beings with no power. And that becomes the collectively agreed upon feedback loop. And we're, collectively entrancing each other. So quantum physics is in a way the medicine that we have dreamed up into the world, into our minds, showing us, if you look at it just right, that, oh my God, it's unlocking our genius, our creative genius. We are creating our experience of ourselves, and we are creating our experience of the world moment by moment. There's no one else doing that. That is the medicine. That is the solution for Wetiko, because Wetiko, we have a particular viewpoint. We become fixed in the viewpoint. We think we're right. We think the world exists objectively, and then we're screwed. And yet people are so invested in that viewpoint. So yeah, quantum physics, I just can't say enough about. And one other thing, if I can, because I can go on forever about quantum physics too. When you realize there's no objective world, well, wait a second, then what happened to the subject? I, as a subject, I need an object to have relationship to in order to be a subject. If all of a sudden there's nothing out there objective, then what happened to me? In other words, quantum physics unwittingly is promoting itself to be a spiritual path, because it's pointing light on who we actually are. And who we are, in essence, is you have the realization that we don't exist as a separate self, separate from the world or each other, that we're actually interconnected, interdependent. And when you realize that, you just get in touch with your nature, whose expression is compassion and love. And all of a sudden, all of that energy that you've been like sort of funneling into creating this limited identity that doesn't even exist in the way you've been imagining it to, becomes available for expressing love and compassion and being creative.
Let's move into a big picture here, since we're talking about global views. COVID, to me, with applying what you're talking about, is it's like an expression of this massive illness on a global level. That this is being expressed through us as this horrendous nightmare that we can't seem to find the end of. So talk about that a little.
Yeah. So in one of my next books, I talk about this, a whole section on COVID, and I talk about that the coronavirus is a lower level emanation of the Wetiko mind virus. That's the real virus that we should be concerned about. And so if we just put our attention on COVID for a moment, it's not just a physical virus. It doesn't have just a physical form. I mean, think about it. It came into our world and it's affected every aspect of our lives: financial markets, political policy, what we wear, what we think about. People are dreaming about it, who we hang out with, what we do, what we feel. It's just affected every aspect of our lives. And I'm pointing out that all of those aspects are, in a way, part of the subtle body of the coronavirus, that it's not just a physical virus. It inculcates fear. So it's making us afraid. It's creating stress. It's like, and then we develop symptoms. And so it's basically, if to think of COVID as just a physical virus, that's a limited view. It has this operational, or you could say subtle body with multiple vectors, like I've been describing. And when you begin to see that, you begin to see, wait a second, all of those different dimensions of how it's impacting on our lives, financial, political, in every way, emotional, spiritual, it all interfaces through the psyche. The psyche, one thing in common with all of them is that it's like whatever experience we're having is getting channeled through the psyche, and then we react. And then, so the point is that when you begin to see that, that's when you begin to snap out of the materialistic spell of thinking the fundamental reality is merely physical, which, by the way, science has proven 100% empirically again and again that at the bedrock, I mean, this is again quantum physics of what's actually happening, is not material, but is some sort of immaterial something or other. And so to see the COVID the way I'm pointing at actually helps you to snap out of the materialistic spell of thinking we exist, solely as bodies. And you begin to see, oh, wait, there's some deeper, higher dimensional process that's informing and giving shape to our experience, including our reactions and every aspect of our experience. That's when you begin, by having that expansion of consciousness, that's when you begin to really see Watiko. Because remember, Watiko only has power, like in the Doctor Who, to the extent they're not seen. And so my whole work is what it brings up. It brings up for me, I mean, a lot of things. I had this amazing dream a number of years ago. The morning two of my teachers were coming to visit me, and in the dream, me and a bunch of friends, we were trying to find this evil character, this Dracula, Count Dracula figure, and we were all chanting Bela Lugosi, Bela Lugosi, the actor who played Count Dracula. And then I see him, and I try to point him out to everybody, but no one else can see him in the dream. And I'm like so frustrated. And that was a number of years ago, 20 years ago. And I feel like with my work, more and more, I'm getting a little bit better at being able to point out the vampire, because Watiko is a vampire. And and think about it, a vampire, you see, the thing about Watiko, it doesn't even exist. There's nothing to be afraid of. It feeds off of fear, okay? In that if people hear this and go, oh, now I'm even more afraid, Paul's talking about this mind virus. No, that reaction itself is Watiko. Watiko has no independent intrinsic existence whatsoever, separate from your own mind. What that's pointing at, that paradox, is that we have everything we need. We have this enormous creative genius and power and agency to dispel Watiko and to help each other to wake up. And Watiko is actually helping us to do that. But like I say, if we don't recognize that, then it's guaranteed going to kill us.